Welcome to the meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. The hearing regulations require that the hearing should take the form of a discussion led by the subcommittee and that cross-examination will not normally be allowed. We'll be following the adopted procedure for these hearings, which is set out on the reverse of the agenda. Each party will be allowed equal maximum time to exercise their rights at the hearing. I will exercise my discretion to allow additional time if necessary, taking into account the requirement to allow all parties equal maximum time. Only those points contained within the written representations, the report and supplementary documents can be raised. No new evidence can be considered except with the agreement of all parties.
Yeah. The housekeeping bit as well.
Okay. My apologies, I missed out a bit. My name is Councillor Brian Laming, one of the committee members for this particular licensing subcommittee. The open parts of the meeting are being live streamed and recorded to the council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn this on is set out on their website. Anybody please ensure that their mobile phones are on silent, including mine. In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow the instructions given to you by our team. Now moving on to the agenda to confirm the chairperson of the meeting.
I'll nominate Councillor Laming. A second him.
Thank you. Disclosures of interest. Do any members or officers have any interest they wish to declare? The application for variation of premises licence, Subway 165 High Street, Winchester, SO22, SO23 9BA. And now to proceedings of the meeting. I'll go back to where I was. The subcommittee has read all the written comments on the application, which are included in the report, and I understand that the following. Oh yeah, okay. I'm having a bad day today, I think. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Councillor Brian Laming, and fellow councillors of the subcommittee is Councillor Wallace and Councillor Morris. The officers represented around the table, could you introduce yourselves, please?
Sajid Mahmood, I'm the licensing solicitor.
Carol Stephenchuk, licensing manager.
Lucy Brian Swallow, and I am representing the Chief Officer of Police.
Craig Friswell, I'm here from Alfie's 157 High Street.
Ray Hunter, I'm representing Subway 165 High Street.
Yeah. Subcommittee has read all the written comments on the application, which are included in the report. I understand that the following persons wish to address the subcommittee. The applicant, Mr. Raymond, I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes.
P.T. Brian Swallow and Craig Friswell. We can only consider issues relating to the 4 licensing objectives: prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, protection of children. Subcommittee will also have regard to the national guidance and council's licensing policy. Could I ask Carol, the licensing manager, to introduce the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This report relates to an application for a variation of premises licence under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for Subway 165 High Street, Winchester, SO23 9BA. Premises is currently licensed for late night refreshment Sunday and Monday 2300 to midnight, Tuesday and Wednesday 2300 to 0100, and Thursday to Saturday 2300 to 0200. This application seeks to increase the timings for the provision of late night refreshment from 0200 to 0400 Thursday to Saturday. Apart from the mandatory conditions, there are currently no additional conditions on the current premises licence. Members should note that in the application under Section M, steps to promote the 4 licensing objectives, The applicant referred to security guards next door at Alfie's. This was disregarded when validating the application, as security provided by other venues should not be relied on when managing their own premises to promote the licensing objectives. During the consultation period, representations were received from Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary, seeking conditions to be added to the premises licence to mitigate concerns in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and prevention of public nuisance licensing objectives. The suggested conditions can be found on pages 42 and 43 of the report pack. There were no representations received from any other responsible authority. One representation was received from another person, Craig Fiswell, who's here today, with concerns in relation to the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, and prevention of public nuisance licensing objectives. And a copy of the representation can be found on page 45 of the report pack. Should the committee be minded to grant the application, there are conditions on pages 13 to 16 of the report to consider. Members may also wish to add additional conditions which are appropriate to promote the licensing objectives, but should discuss this during the hearing so the applicant has an opportunity to respond and explain how this may affect their business operation. That concludes my report for now, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to ask any questions?
What stage?
Nothing.
Yes, Carol, in the pack, obviously we've been through all the pack. There was one document in there I was a little confused about. That was there's a planning application in there. Can you explain what that is, please?
The additional information provided by the police, I believe, is in reference to something that the police intend to refer to in their submission to the committee today, which shows a connection to the applicant in relation to another issue. I think probably for now that's all I need to say, and
No, I
you
think
refer to that
that's
later.
fair on. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just have the legal position clarified that we don't take other existing existing permissions into account as setting a precedent for anything that happens today, and that what we do today doesn't necessarily set a precedent for any other applications further down the line. Is that correct?
So the variation application is to request additional timings. So you could decide today that you reject the application, but that would still allow Subway to continue to operate in the terms of their current premises licence. The decision you make today does not take anything away from what the licence already has. That can only be done under a review process. But in terms of other premises,
I'm talking about in terms of other premises that might already have a licence to operate until 4 in the morning. So does that set a precedent which we should follow today? And if we were to grant this application, would that set a precedent for further applications for other businesses to operate till 4 in the morning?
So, I mean, that may well be persuasive to other parties, trying to convince a subcommittee that, you know, such applications have been granted. But for the purposes of this application, this should be considered completely in isolation. And in answer to your question, no, it's not a precedent. It's not a binding sort of contractual agreement or decision. It is, you know, the decision of the subcommittee is always unfettered, and reference is always made to the guidelines, the terminal hours within the policy, etc. And that's what would be referred to in the future.
Would the applicant like to make your statement?
I think already what was said, I was to add on to that, that we have a license for a number of years, open until 2 o'clock. We noticed recently there was another competitor, other side of, not too far from us, opening until 4 o'clock. I know we discussed just that now. And they are open until 4 o'clock, and we didn't notice any CIA guard standing at the door. So having that in mind, we put the application forward. So we'll continue open 2 o'clock if the councils allow us to do that. But we were just trying to add to the night economy, extending our hours. So we don't provide any alcohol. It's just the teas, coffees and sandwich. And that's the whole idea of it, that I believe when people leave the premises, nightclubs or the bars next door to us, they come to us to eat something. It's normal phenomena, anybody leave, they will go and eat. And we were there for a number of years and we were the only one open until 2 a.m. Now other players are coming in the market, which is absolutely fine. But we thought we were already here and let's start extend. So today I'm just asking for from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. What we couldn't do is that employ somebody from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Couldn't justify as a business. It's a very small business and business couldn't bear the fact, which is, I understand this is our problem, but I just want to put it on the table. On top of that, I think there is one objection. I think there's some confusion on that we never rely on Alfie's guards, never. But what it is, we have a radio system. So we call the radio system security radio system provided by Winchester BID, and that radio is connected to different guards in the area. But I remember 18 months ago, once we called that radio, either they will call their own guards within the Winchester Council, or if there's nobody present, they will call the police. That's how it works. But that particular night, the guards next door turned up. So I was just mentioning that happened, but I'm not saying that we are relying on them. We never did and we will never do. It just, if the security team put the message out and they also pick up that message and we neighbor, they turn up, I couldn't say go away. So I think that's misread, and I want to put it out, clarify the point where it was once it happened, never before and never after. But we don't sit there and say, oh, we're going to call the guards from next door Alfie. We understand we are business. They are business. Why should we rely on them? But if the security team who takes our call put the message out and they decided people to turn out, I'm not going to stop them. That's the position. But I think all in all, what we're looking at from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, if we can extend to 4 o'clock, and that's the only request we have. And that's it, I think.
Thank you. You got any questions?
We have, as was explained, we have to treat each application individually, and that's the way the licensing works. However, you did mention another business that's open till 4.
Yeah.
Who is that, please?
It's the German Doner Kebab, which is at the side of Alfie.
That's fine. Thank you. That's fine.
Councillor Morris?
If the application was granted with the conditions, would you say that was not commercially viable and you would just continue operating to 2 o'clock and you wouldn't go to 4 o'clock?
Yeah, because I wouldn't sit here and say yes to everything. I mean, and that's the whole idea, is that the business cannot afford that. If the condition was doable, it's nothing to do with having a guard. Then we have to look at it. But if the condition is to do with having a guard, which is already, then it will be difficult for us. So I'm not saying no to that, but it's not that I'm trying to be resistant to that. It's just not that it's not viable for the business.
And in the nature of the business in those sort of hours of the morning, would you say there's people eating at the premises or taken away?
We have they will be eating on the premises, yeah. At the moment, until 2 o'clock, that's what we do.
Generally, Subway is seen as a takeaway outlet.
Yeah.
So if people go to your premises at 2 in the morning,
yeah,
and decide to take away their food,
absolutely fine.
That's absolutely fine. You have no way of policing that. You have no way of enforcing the idea that people eat in your premises.
Yeah. I mean, on that, as you just said, we did consider if that was the case, we could put away tables and chairs around 4 o'clock. So people just come in, grab the bag and go on. We've done that during COVID. We don't have space to remove them from the premises, but we literally take the chairs and put it on the table upside down so nobody sits there. So it comes across the takeaway premises. We could do that from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. That helps.
Possibly, but one of the main objections, as I understand it, is the antisocial behaviour that may ensue.
Yeah.
And in that case, having a business which doesn't let people in
Yeah.
or only does takeaways may actually increase antisocial behaviour because people will be forced to eat their food on the street or on the way home.
I mean, whichever I'm looking at from the advice point of view, whichever is suitable, we will do that. Because at the moment we have people sitting inside, and that's what they do. And it shows social behaviour. Absolutely, you're right. It could happen in 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We had young people coming around, messing about, and we have to report to the council. So anti-social behaviour is what we have as a business to deal with throughout the day. So we have seen last summer, God forbid, this was very good last summer, when the young people turn up 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, mess about in there. So we have to report it to bid team and they will turn up. So on that, we are very much aware of that and we deal with that every day on that respect. But going back to your question, if your advice is to have the tables and chairs in, we are already having it on stock. We'll keep that going. That's it.
Yeah, one more question. You're currently open till 2 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
without any sort of security
Yeah.
guard. How would you characterise how your business works? Is there a lot of disruption, or is it generally, or have you had no reason need to call out security in the last 12 months or so?
We 95% we have no reason to call the police, and if we do, we will go. Our team is trained to call the radio system we have. It operates late night. We call them, and if there's any security guard around, they will come. The council employed. If no, they will call the police. That's how it works.
Okay, so would you, if you were to characterise your customers who turn up at 2 o'clock in the morning, having come out of had a great evening at one of Winchester's venues, would you say they were tended to be boisterous, loud, aggressive, drunk?
It depends. We all had a night out, so we have seen how people behave and how alcohol affects some of the people than others. Not everybody is the same. I remember a couple of years ago that army officers, they always have, local army officers, they always have a night out and they come to, I think, Guildhall and around this area. And I still remember that. I wouldn't call it they were misbehaving, but there was a different attitude when they come in the morning, they're different people. But that, we deal with that. So the army officer will run around with a mop and bucket in the customer area, and we have to, I got to know all and stop him. But that happens. I mean, we deal with that. So it's not that it's going to be great at the night time, but sometimes things happen. We are a food business, we're an high street, and we deal with that.
Last question, just following on from that, is our concern is not just members of the public or your customers, but also going to be the safety of your staff. And if there's no security on the door, and there are disruptive people coming in, what training does your staff have to deal with in that situation, and what resources do they have to fall back on for their own protection?
So the first thing is, of course, the radio system is they put it behind them so that. So what happens? It's a deterrent, so people can hear when the security guards are talking to each other. It comes through the radio, so it is right behind the counter. So that is the first one. We have a CCTV system, which we service and operate throughout the day. And we also have a gate system, so our gate is locked. The counter door is locked, and we have prospect right. Nobody even can reach our staff. So we put the screening. Counter wise, there's a counter, of course. If somebody's really want to jump the counter is different, but we have a hive counter on the side of the door where somebody could approach your staff from the 2 meter high prospect, so nobody can reach them, and it's latched on.
Okay, sorry, right,
No.
the answer I was trying to ferret out is, do your staff who work on those hours have specific training to deal with this situation, to deal with those sort of customers?
Yes, because it's Subway brand, Subway has a system in place where they have online training. You have to pass to stand behind the counter from food safety to the store safety, and they all have done that. And on top of that, I'm more verbally talking to them, checking them that is their role.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think my fellow councillors have asked a fair number of questions. I'm concerned about the litter as well that's generated if you have takeaways, because we've had problems in the past with other outlets.
You're absolutely right. But once somebody leaves the premises, I'm choosing the. I don't know if how we wouldn't go around the high street and start collecting Subway bags, because that is happening for all the businesses. But I don't know if I'm answering the question correctly. But if somebody came and bought the food and went out, eat on the road, put it in the bin or on the side of the road, I don't know what the advice is, but I think that is why we couldn't control. Until unless it was in front of our shop, of course we clear straight away. Whenever it's clear, because what we are not advising our staff to come out regularly, because they are breaking the barrier to come out clear. They need to make sure that there's not too much, or there's no trouble, then they come out. Of course, they have to clean the tables and everything else. But going to the road, we can only clear our entrance and the front of the store if there was, but not beyond that. I wouldn't let them go anywhere else.
Have you taken into consideration the fact that the outreach people that patrol Winchester afterwards finish by 4 o'clock? So therefore, if somebody's in trouble because they've stayed out much later than that, we need to consider public safety on this issue as well. So how do you propose to look at that?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Well, when we licensed a bar till 4 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
There was a great deal of discussion went on about how we promote public safety, because the street passers and everything else have finished by then, and they had an extensive network of their patrols afterwards to make sure that people were could get home safely. Now we need to sort of take that into consideration as well. If you've got people congregating down at that end of the city, and the services are no longer there to actually assist if there is a problem. So have you thought about that?
So I'm just trying to understand which services would not be available.
Well, the street passer, for example.
Yeah.
And people are looking at homelessness and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And we haven't got a police station in Winchester anymore, so we're a little bit. I'm a little bit concerned about the safety of people.
Yeah.
Once the pubs are closed down.
Yeah.
Their safety people have left. The street passers have left.
Yeah.
So therefore, we've got to consider the safety of people around at that point.
So are we saying that we cannot call the security team that time?
Well, that's the question I'm asking.
Never into
That's the question I'm asking you,
Yeah.
because if the pubs are closed at 3,
Yeah.
I would expect the safety staff to have left by sort of 3:30, 4.
Yeah.
And therefore, there is no safety around at that particular time.
But are we relying on the safety people from people like next door?
Well,
We are not.
I'm asking you, how are we going to have the safety?
So we still believe that radio system works. We will still use that.
Yeah.
We avoid every cost to call the police directly with of course we have telephone call, we can call the police, but we don't. We usually, I mean, because we haven't been to that position at 4 o'clock. I can tell you the 2 o'clock, everything is there. 4 o'clock, if there was a situation, we will use the radio unless we are told that there's nobody monitoring the radio system until 4 o'clock. That's what we don't know yet, but I believe they do. The 4 o'clock, because this is continuous service provided, and if they decide to call the police that time, that's how.
Okay, well, I'll reserve that question for the police because they know how the system works better than I can. But
Chairman, can I respond to a comment and perhaps just clarify something? And this might be something that PC Swallow clarifies later anyway. The reference to council security guards, there are none. We as an authority do not have security guards in Winchester. What I think you may be referring to is your shop watch radio,
Yes,
which is through Winchester Bid.
Yeah.
And at late night,
Yeah.
so the rangers who you see in Winchester during the day, they stop in the evenings,
Right.
Early evening, I
Yeah.
believe. PC Swallow may know better
10 o'clock.
timings. 10 o'clock. Thank you. So after that time, my understanding is that radio would connect to the CCTV system, which
Yeah.
is covered by Winchester. So there is no security response. I think I just need to make that clear to you as a committee, that that radio is for CCTV if there is an incident to request CCTV assistance, which in turn then, if there is disorder, would prompt a call to the police. There is not a standby of security guards in Winchester that would then come to the venue. If you don't have your own security, that CCTV would request police assistance, which, as you're aware, that would depend on their priorities. I think what's probably best in terms of procedure is, I think once PC Swallow has spoken, you may then have more questions, which then understands a little bit more about your response.
Yeah.
But I think from a licensing authority's perspective is that these late openings is where it's the responsibility of the premises to show how they will manage it. And there will be things in place like a radio system to recall for assistance. But I think it's key, and we do state that in our policy, that the expectation is that when you're making an application like this, in your operating schedule, which I referred to earlier, that's where you should come across and say, this is what we are going to do to make sure that we are not going to, this is how we're going to promote the licensing objectives, the 4 licensing objectives, prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance and protection of children. So it's for you to show the committee, how you're going to manage that. And I think the slight issue here is that because you didn't put much in your application, and that's solely down to you, that's not where we, I think we did as much as we could in terms of providing you a copy of the policy, but that has to be formulated by you as an applicant to show how you're going to comply. And then you've got the other side where you've got lots of conditions by the police. There's no in between, and I think that's where, obviously today, that's where the committee may need to make that decision. But I think it perhaps would have been easier for you if you'd have provided more information to the committee about what you would do if you cannot comply with what it is that the police would like you to do. But I think once the police have discussed a bit more about their proposals, then that might make it a bit easier to discuss and move forward.
Just to clarify the point, you're absolutely right. But to me, when we pick up that radio system, so if the guards are not there, it goes to the CCTV team, and if they decide to call the police, that's what they do. But and that provides us the safety at the moment. That was the point I was trying to make here.
Only if the police are available. And I think this is the point that we have to make, it is that this is a backup for venues. It cannot be your absolute resolution for any issues.
All right.
That's what I was interested in. Right. Thank you. Appreciate that comments. So can we ask police for their points of view, please?
Would it be permissible if I can first ask a question of the applicant that is in relation to,
Yes, sure.
to radios? I think it, I haven't produced any of this information before, but I think it is quite pertinent and
Please,
Mr.
please ask
Moon
the question.
So, are you aware of an incident that happened at 1:10 in the morning of the 29th of September this year.
Sorry. What I was saying, I was out of the country. I got back on Sunday. But when I spoke to my manager, I was told there was incident recently, yes.
So you were aware that there was a fight
Yeah.
in the premises?
Yeah.
Were you aware that the radio that you have was utilised to call the CCTV?
Yeah.
Requesting police? Were you
Yeah, I
aware
did
of that?
ask that question.
Yeah. Were you aware that no other information other than just the fact that police were needed was all that was transmitted across the radio?
I was told the police turned up, yes. Because they spoke to the radio and then the police came.
Were you aware that having been asked a couple of times for descriptions of the people involved, they were then told, sorry, you couldn't respond anymore because you've got customers to serve? Be aware of that?
No, I've no idea.
Right. So were you aware that when the police did turn up, as there were no descriptions, they couldn't do anything and had to leave?
No, I'm not aware of that, but usually in these circumstances, police will leave their car and will come back. They want to see the CCTV. If you really need to see that information.
They left because your
did.
venue couldn't provide or didn't provide any details of the persons
Yeah, but
involved.
what
And
the
we're not
police-
going to.
So I understand that, but
Yeah.
why the police wouldn't come back next day to ask for the CCTV? We have a CCTV system.
Yes, you do.
In
But
past, police has done that.
Yeah.
We provided that. Now, why not this time?
because it would have been for your venue, you're reliant on the radio, as you've clearly demonstrated this morning,
Yeah.
to pass a description of those people. I was only asking those questions to say this is a very recent event. You've been relying on the use of the radio to contact the police. There's a situation, a circumstance where radio was utilised and it hasn't been used correctly.
What do you mean? But I don't understand that part. So the radio was called and the CCTV team called the police. That's what happened.
Yes, we did.
Exactly.
So
that's what
the
we're
police
talking
turned
about.
up with a fight, and so who's responsible, who's involved? We can't tell you because we need to serve customers.
I don't know how, I don't understand your question and I don't understand how you want me to answer that. If the staff is working and there's a busy period, the fight was because there were a number of people on that night, yeah, and there's two groups. So if their customer is serving, so if the police is saying that we should close the store and start talking to the police on that point or serve the customers, I'm not sure.
I would say the former. I think that's exactly
Close the door and start talking to police.
I would say that's
So-
exactly what you would
Well,
do.
in-
If you're
in-
calling the police, then yes,
in
that's
past,
exactly
in
what
my
I would do.
experience, police did turn up next day and we provided them everything. Why different now?
I can't answer that.
Why the policies changed
I
now?
would imagine because they were quite bemused the fact that the information wasn't supplied at the time. That was the only point I was making, because I believe it was pertinent in relation to use of the radio. If you're happy with that. From that, if you're happy, I can go into my deposition. This application to increase the licensing out of this premises is about two things, and for the two sets of people. On one side, the applicant, where everything is about money. He's a businessman, wants to make money, and he wants to spend less. On the flip side of the coin are those making the representations, myself representing the Chief Officer of Police, and we have Craig, who's the DPS and the General Manager from Alfie's. We will state that everything for us is about licensing objectives, predominantly three licensing objectives: prevention of crime, disorder, public nuisance and public safety. Winchester City, as lovely as it is not a violent place per se. It isn't. But, sorry. But it does suffer from violent crime and sexual related crime. Those reported incidents occur most predominantly on Friday and Saturday nights. On these nights, they're most prevalent during the late night hours. And geographically, they occur on High Street. Hopefully the summary of incidents that I provided for today's hearing does give you those details, and they are dated the 30th of September. So they were as recent as I could apply for. All of those times and location are at the epicentre of this application, those timings and the high street. The applicant may argue, I'm surprised he didn't actually, that providing food to those in a state of intoxication may actually sober people up. Common myth. It may well do, but there is no evidence for that, that he can provide or that I can provide. What I can say is that the longer people stay in the nighttime economy areas in a state of intoxication, the more likely they are to be both victims of crime and offenders of crime. Those people are already lacking in self-discipline and control, being full of bravado, speaking louder, argumentative, increased level of testosterone, etc. That petty argument, that slight stumble into another person in the queue for food very quickly escalates into a verbal dispute, which becomes heated argument. Some pushing and shoving starts, others become involved, punches start swinging, individuals are knocked to the ground and they're kicked and stamped on. We see this in the news, in social media, week in, week out, across in every town, every city across the country. Those people involved in those incidents, for whatever reason, have life-changing consequences. The statistics that I've provided about those incidents are happening in Winchester and they're happening now. So one of the most effective ways to mitigate the scenario is the presence of SI security during the material times, who are in possession of body-worn cameras to support the static CCTV within the venue. The applicant doesn't want to implement these measures because they cost too much. That is not my concern, and I would strongly suggest that it's not yours either. During the consultation process, I proposed conditions in relation to CCTV, SIA, body-worn video, and are all detailed within the correspondence that I provided for you, the email trails. During this consultation process, my uniformed colleagues may be aware of unlicensed activities at the location. A stand had been erected, advertising late night refreshment. The seller gave the personal details of today's applicant as the owner of this operation. As you'll see from the enclosed correspondence, I challenged him on this point. His response is also included, but to summarise, he states that it was nothing to do with him, and I disagree. The applicant states that Narina McCartney is the operator of this business, NSM Foods Limited. However, just a mere 5 minutes on Google probably suggests otherwise. The applicant's business used to be registered with Companies House at 87 Greenhill Road, Fulford, Winchester, SA22 5EA. On the 25th February 2018, this is when your question comes in, Councillor. On 25th February 2018, the Winchester's Planning Department listed an application for 87 Greenhill Road, Fulford, Winchester, SA22 5EA, with the applicants being Narina McCartney and today's applicant, Rahim Rahman. I will suggest to you that they are at least business partners and that Mr. Rahim was fully aware of the unlicensed activities on the 8th of September. I digress. Back to point hand. If this application is granted without provisions of CCTV, SIA, and with their use of body-worn video, the licensing objectives of prevention of crime, sword, public safety, and public nuisance just cannot be upheld. So I will therefore propose two outcomes. Either the application be granted with the P3 proposed conditions that I've included in my pack, or it's refused in its entirety. And that's the end of my submission. Thank you.
Can I add some
Thank you.
comments?
Yeah, I was going to say, as the police have had a chance to ask you questions, I would allow you to ask the same question. Well, see, can you put your mic on? Yeah.
Right, I think a couple of things, because PC Brian Swallow, I've been communicating a lot, and I even suggested, can I come to your office to sit down and meet with you? PC Brian Swallow is totally aware that Marina McCartney, the business he's talking about, and we explained and we wrote it to the council about it, it's a separate business. I am a tenant of Winchester City Council for 165 High Street, and I own a company or director of a company, R2 Sub Limited. NSM Food Limited is a separate business, and my wife is the director of that company. And I wrote it to PC Brian Swallow about it, and he chose not to mention that today. That is a separate business. We have a dark kitchen. It's a terminology used in catering business. Dark kitchen is where you supply food on from the premises online, delivery Uber Eats, Just Eat. So there's no much of people walking in. So on that night, I think the 17th of July, we decided to come out in front of, because I, on the background, just the background knowledge, I've been in conversation with Richard, head of state, Winchester, to take the premises next door, which is a close-up shop. So there's a discussion going on. So we decided that night to bring the marketing pod out, stand there at night around 11 o'clock to just see if we can attract any customers there. We had the police come to see us around 11:30. They asked us, you cannot do it because you need a permission. And the officer who came, I have written his name and I sent it to PC Brian Swallow, his name, he's his colleague. And he said, I think you need, if you're doing that, it's like running a market stall. You have to ask the council a question. If they allow you, then you can stand there. I said, no problem. We removed it and put it away. My kitchen manager did. And straight away, next morning, we wrote it to the council, I don't know, licensing department, with all the pictures and police name, and this is what happened last night. We were told to remove it. So I don't understand. And PC Brian Swallow is aware of that. It's nothing to do with that business. And I said, it's nothing to do with Subway. So he's mixing up, to me, he's just mixing up applications. So I don't know why we are discussing my wife's business here. I'm here to represent Subway, not the NSM Foods. So I don't understand why that 10 minutes were decided to spend on that. So I feel it's like personal grudge now rather than talking about business to business. Nothing
No,
to
I
do
think,
with businesses.
PC Swallow made his point and you made your point. So I'd like to carry on with the conversation. Would you like to say something?
Can I just ask for some legal advice on conduct of the meeting? Although the matters raised by PC Swallow are serious, are they material considerations for us granting the license today? Because they seem to be matters for existing licensing and existing enforcement rather than a new arrangement.
So matters to discuss today are everything entirely to do with this application of variation. Planning matters are a separate issue. This is a licensing issue. Planning's got nothing to do with licensing, cannot be taken into consideration. And even so far as any other business considerations, it's got nothing to do with this particular business. The issues are very narrow with this particular business, as the police have rightly put forward. The conditions to do with the licensing objectives is the only priority for this meeting. That should be the only basis upon which a decision is made to grant or refuse the license.
Okay. Right, so can we continue on with, sorry,
I don't know who I'm asking, whether it's Carol or yourself, PC Swallow. It was mentioned earlier that GDK opens until 4 a.m. in the morning. What conditions do they have on their opening? Just again, I will emphasise each individual. I understand each application has to be treated on its own individual merits, but I would be interested in understanding.
I did open the license earlier just in case there were questions about this. GDK have a premises license for late night refreshment Thursday to Saturday, 2300 to 0400. And they're open during the day as well. It's late night refreshment only, no alcohol. They're subject to the mandatory conditions. There are conditions on the premises license which were offered by the applicant as part of their operating schedule. There was no licensing subcommittee to decide the application. So this would have gone into consultation. The responsible authorities would have seen a copy, and there were no representations received that I'm aware of. I didn't personally deal with this case, but I can double check if I need to. The conditions on that license refer to CCTV, no dine-in after 2300. It's a takeaway or delivery service. Refusal log for sales is kept. So refusal of sales, effectively. Sorry, I'm just trying to skim read as I read it out. There's a condition in relation to the CCTV that it will be maintained and kept for an appropriate period agreed with the police. Reference to plastic or aluminium cans to be sold, so referring to no glass. All staff employed at the store between the hours of 11 PM and 4 AM shall be trained in crowd management. Doors and windows to be closed except for access and egress. Yeah, 11 PM takeaway or deliveries. The staff shall undertake a litter pick to a distance of 1 metre around the premises daily. Doesn't seem very far, but that's obviously what was offered as part of the conditions. And notices at the premises at all exits requesting patrons to respect the needs of local residents and leave the premises in the area quietly. Such as I can forward you a copy if you're your camera. So these were conditions that were offered as part of the operating schedule, as opposed to conditions added on by a licensing subcommittee.
Thank you. So PC Swallow, can you help us to understand why we've got to have these additional conditions on this application, but they weren't required on the GDK application? Thank you.
I can. I was on holiday when GDK application came in, and a colleague who wasn't used to the area processed it without looking at it to the level of diligence that I would have done. And so it went through without any representation from the police as applied for. I can say, if you asked the question, had that been me dealing with that application, I believe that conditions such as door staff, security, body worn video and CCTV would be required.
And when was that license granted?
Bear with me. Sorry, bear with me.
Prepare
Oh,
you.
I still got my one. It was issued, it was valid from the 12th of October last year.
Okay.
So almost 12
Almost
months
a year.
ago.
And are you, I know I'm catching you off guard here.
I think I don't want to preempt your question, but if I can just say we have to be very careful not to be discussing compliance and enforcement of another venue when we are considering a completely different application. I'll just say that before you ask your question.
Have you've given us statistics on for the area? How can I ask this question? So you've given us statistics for the area. I'm going to have to think about how to answer this.
Councillor Wallace, I have a similar question, so I might leave them. when we're sort of trying to characterise how a restaurant operates between 2 and 4 in the morning, the best thing we have to go on are existing premises which are already operating at that time. Do you think it would be reasonable of us to use that as a sort of as a model, going, if other restaurants operate on this basis and have no particular problems, that would seem to apply to this application too?
I think the pertinent point is that I haven't said, and because I haven't been asked, that there are no problems at that venue. I think probably the best person to ask to get an overview as to what the area is like in its operation would probably be Craig. He's an operator that runs a late night economy venue till 4 o'clock in the morning. Although I do work those hours and I do see issues, as Carol rightly said, it would be remiss of me to talk about other venues and problems.
So again, I mean, today's meeting is to amplify what has already been provided to us. So this is not the point where you would introduce new evidence that no one's aware of. I mean, I've not seen any other evidence in this application or any objections. So I think we have to be careful of that, because otherwise we can't start going down this other road. Yeah, okay.
It's been quite a while since I've been out in Winchester after 2 o'clock in the morning. But my experience of going out in the early hours is there's not a huge difference between the behaviour of people being kicked out of pubs between midnight and 2 and 4. How would you characterise the difference? And I'll ask the business later on as well. So.
No, there is a difference. People have been out for 2 hours longer. They have consumed more alcohol, and they are more inebriated. They are more intoxicated. With that, causes issues. That's why the statistics will show, and Craig will back me up from a venue point of view, that the incidence will increase the later on your operation goes. So regardless of whether you're open until 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, the later you go, more people drink more. So you will have more incidents. The number of people will probably be less. So looking at from an overview, the footfall will be reduced because people are going home, blah, blah, but some of those who remain out will cause problems.
It's the counter argument would be that if people are leaving the venue at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning, and they see that businesses are open with staff inside and with people inside, they actually feel safer rather than walking home down a high street which is dark and unoccupied. So would you agree that there is actually a safety benefit in having a nighttime economy?
If a venue is run properly and it has its own security measures, then yes. But ultimately, you get the moth to a flame scenario, which we see.
Can you characterise this sort of?
If you have lights on and the premises open, people will go to it.
Keep going. Regarding your conditions, there's sort of 2 sections. There's CCTV and there's the security with the body worn.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
As I understand, the venue already has CCTV. So could we regard that condition as already having been met to begin with?
There is no existing condition for CCTV on the licence. When I proposed that there'll be a formal condition, the applicant said that his system adheres to what I've requested. I haven't checked that. I haven't seen that, and that's all I got from that. Without a condition, if granted, that system could break, fail to be maintained, and there's no reliance of that from the operator to maintain that system.
So effectively, we're conditioning it to make sure it's run to the.
That's what I would propose. Yes.
And would you say that all your conditions are essential and should be regarded as a whole, or whether we could pull bits out or stick bits in? Would you say that the whole thing should be considered as one deal effectively?
No, no, I'll probably have to say no. Each condition is, I propose, is for specific reasons. So that the licensing 182 guidance is quite clear and specific, so I can't cherry pick and put loads of conditions on just because, and they have to be tailored for an individual premises and for the style of operation. So CCTV, I would suggest, is for the whole operation, as was mentioned earlier, also looking after the staff and the customers within the shop, and some element outside. Security, SI security, because they are trained to a higher degree in conflict and resolution, first aid, etc. And then the body worn video, which those two do go together, the security and the body worn video. It's the 21st century thing where CCTV these days obviously doesn't record any audio. Body worn video much closer, captures the audio, captures everything. That's why the police wear them. It's why pretty much all door staff now wear them for their own protection, but also the protection and in conflict resolution. You turn one of those on and people see that they're being recorded and their little faces on there. It's been recorded. It will de-escalate. So the SIA and the body worn video are probably connected, but the SIA is the CCTV is separate. But the three together in this scenario, in this instance, I believe are required for the matters that I proposed.
Thank you. One last question is, what is the normal police presence at this area during these hours? Do you normally have a police car at the bottom of the high street, or is your response time longer?
So it is obviously it's quite dynamic, as you can imagine. Policemen will be, and we are ultimately at the will of the Treble 9 service. Winchester does have a dedicated nighttime economy policing plan, where every Friday and Saturday night they will aim to put out either one pair or two pairs of neighbourhood officers from 6 o'clock until 10 o'clock at night, and they will come from the rural police stations in Winchester and Winchester Greater. 10 o'clock, so 9 o'clock, the nighttime economy officers come on duty, and they're based at Winnell, the response officers, and they will provide again 2 pairs of officers, and they will patrol from 10 o'clock till 2 o'clock on paper. They are there at the discretion of supervisors on the time. So if there's a dynamic need to keep them on till later, and the resourcing allows it, so there are no other calls to service elsewhere in Winchester or further afield, then they can be kept on in the area until such time as they're no longer needed. Likewise, if it's a very quiet weekend, there's not a lot going on, and there are other calls to service elsewhere, then they can be abstracted from the nighttime economy and used to patrol elsewhere. So it's fluid. There is a baseline which we like to stick to, which will be 4 from 6 till 10, and then they're replaced with another 4 from 10 till 2. After 2 o'clock, that's when we struggle. But stated case, and that's why I don't mention it within any of my representation, either the first application or now, I can't use police resourcing to discuss an application.
No, thank you for your answer. It's just my experience of living in like Lewisham is that when it was pubs were closing out, you had a huge police presence outside those pubs as a matter of
Southampton, Portsmouth, you will get that. They've got more police resourcing. They have more crime. We have less crime, so we have less officers. It swings and roundabouts to some extent.
Thank you.
Need and supply.
It's also fair to say that most of the venues in Winchester do have security, and they do wear body cameras, from what I remember from various other applications.
No,
So-
that is correct.
So therefore, it's quite reasonable to look at it from that point of view, I suppose. Right. Sorry? Yeah. Well, right, yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's quite right. Can I ask Craig Frisbell to address us, please?
Yeah, hi, I'm Craig. I'm the general manager of Alphys. I've been the manager there for 18 years. I am an SI trained door staff as well, but I do it at my own venue along with the team I've got. Yeah, basically our objection was just on where we were mentioned specifically in the application. Our security guard next door. I take his case in point about us attending an incident and stuff like that. But that was, we have been attended at the request of staff before, because if the police aren't attending and we see someone getting their head kicked in, we're going to try and help. We're not just going to stand there. But my security team are in charge of my venue. We, as the police are around, they tend to be around until like 2-3 o'clock, but that can vary from Friday and Saturdays. Sometimes they're here till 3:30, sometimes they're not. My door staff therefore patrol the area outside my venue until almost all the customers have gone in taxis. They do that so that the people are safe, and we probably do more as we're the last place open, pub-wise in Winchester. Other venues probably don't disperse for as long as us, but as we're the last place open, everyone comes down to us. The area outside our venue is quite busy, therefore our door staff stay on quite regularly till 3:30, 4:45. If it's an incident, we might be staying on it a little longer, and the majority of incidents we deal with are ones which are starting off and like someone knocking into someone, and we're there to stop things escalating basically, and that's the worry we have with them not having their own security team, with the fact that people will then go there until after our team have gone, and little instances flare up really quickly at that time in the morning basically, and with no one there to stop it or intervene. As the gentleman says in his own thing, his staff are staying behind the counter. They're not getting involved in anything the other side of that counter. We have a general worry that bad incidents could happen. I won't talk about, if I'm asked, like we've got things about the venues, stuff like that, but I won't mention them. But yeah, basically our one is just how we were specifically mentioned in it, and I needed to point out the fact that we're not a rapid response team. By the letter of the law, we're not even insured to go down there, but what we won't do is, if you see someone getting badly hurt, we're not just going to stand by and let that happen, but we have no mandate to go down there. But if we're asked, and we have been asked by various different venues over the years at different times, please come and help us, we're not going to say no if we can. So that's where we get to with helping other venues. But yeah, that's, I mean, in regards to litter as well, we patrol our area outside, and the staff patrol a wideish area and pick up any plastic glasses that people leave our venue, because, like I said, it's part of the city. We're lucky in the nighttime economy that we've got the license to do what we do, but we try and protect it at all costs. Basically, we're having conditions of door staff, and as the police's point with body cam footage, it's been invariable. I can test that myself with many incidents I've been involved in where CCTV doesn't capture everything. Body cam footage gets the words, gets the intention of people, and is a deterrent and is used for evidence afterwards. Many times in our place, CCTV would have had one to say on an incident, and body cam footage shows it in a completely different light.
Thank you. That was very helpful for me. Thank you.
The question is, firstly, to apologise for calling you Chris. It's Craig. Sorry. How would you characterise the difference in customers leaving your venue between 2 o'clock in the morning and after that? I mean, again, I have no experience.
I can do it quite easily. It's quite simple. There's nowhere else to go, so there's a vast difference. People leaving between 12, 1, 1:30. There's other places to go to, so they will go off to other places or go home. End of the night crowd is, although it's the same people, they react in different ways. The customers know how to go. Some of them, we try and push them into taxis as best we can, and sometimes some people take more persuasion than others. And yeah, so there is a distinct change in people between, say, midnight and 1:30, 2 o'clock, as opposed to after 2 o'clock, because after 2 o'clock we're the only place open. So getting people to go away after that time is a lot more difficult than it is before then, because most people at the end of the night, they're either going to go straight home or they're going to mill about for ages. And that's the issue we have, that my daughters are out there dealing with basically until that time every evening.
So would you say that your existing door security team prove their worth more after 2 o'clock in the morning?
100%. I mean, there can be instances before then, but they definitely prove their worth after that time. Violence or anything can happen at any time. Our worst incident ever was before midnight in our pub, but after 2 o'clock there is a rise of it, and majority of it is literally just nipping things in the bud, or people knowing that if they start kicking off, we separate them, go to away, have a little word, and they separate, and that's what stops it escalating to much more dangerous situations.
Thank you.
Have you any questions that you wish to?
I don't have a question, but I just noticed PC Brian mentioned that there's no police between 2 and 4 o'clock. Is that's the reason we are asked to have our own policing on the door, to police our premises? That's the only question I have, because if there's no police between 2 and 4, I understand this point of view, but then as a businessman, I pay the business rates. Is that not covered? Am I not covered by the police by between 2 and 4 because there's no police coverage?
No. That was concise. Thank you.
No. So the answer is no.
I think my comment in response to that is there are other venues that are open at that time, but also thousands of other people that live in the Winchester district. And what that means is there's a lesser resource of police, and they respond on priority. And so they, you know, as always, as you know, 24/7, the police will always have to respond in order of priority. They will never have enough police. I'm sure they will sit there and say there will never be enough police to deal with every single crime that's being reported. They have to manage it in terms of priority. So yes, you are a business rates player, and yes, you are able at any time to dial 999 if you fear there's a you know, a safety or a life-threatening situation in your venue. Whether they can respond at that time is a different matter, but that would be no different to Craig at Alfie's or somebody at O'Neill's or GDK. It wouldn't matter what venue you are, it matters what the call is about, if that makes sense. So
yeah, it makes sense. But my question is that Brian also also said there was less crime as comparison to Southampton and Portsmouth. So we established there is a less crime in Winchester anyway. Hence the reason 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock police is available in Portsmouth and Southampton. That's what I heard. But there's no need here in Winchester because there's less crime. But then as a business, I'm asked to have your own police at the door because there is less opportunity for the local police to come and cover you. That's how I read it from my point of view. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is how I take it, what I heard.
Chairman, if I may add, and this is something I was going to ask if you're prepared for me to mention anyway, I think what's really important here is that the Licensing Act and our own council policy, the licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder.
Yeah.
And I think that's key, that it's not about, it is about reaction, but it's also about preventing it.
Yeah.
And as a licensed venue, there's an element of responsibility for you to make sure that your venue, if you're open at those times, you are preventing crime and disorder, you are protecting the public, you're preventing public nuisance. And that's what the committee have to make a decision on today. It's not about, it is about how you respond to it, but it's also about how you manage your venue to prevent those things happening.
Exactly. See, but I know we shouldn't be talking about the German doner kebab, but I don't buy that PC Brian Swallow was on holiday and that's where they was granted. We're talking with the police here, not Miss PC Brian Swallow. That was so if the condition wasn't applied, not because of one person.
But we're looking at this particular application.
Exactly.
And we're not looking at anything else apart from that. It's this particular application and how you maintain public safety. What other venues do, it's got nothing to do with it. What we're looking at is this particular one and whether we feel that it's a safe operation.
You're absolutely right, but I'm just mentioning that because we just did mention that earlier. So no, sorry,
So if I can also mention that, Mr. Rahman, this is your opportunity to say how your venue can manage the premises during those times.
Yeah.
And with respect, you've said that you cannot afford what the police are asking you to do, but you haven't put forward anything else for the committee to consider. And I think that's really important, is that you recognise that I don't think it's as clear as just saying we can't have them or the police want all these conditions. I think it's also your opportunity to say, well, we can't afford to have this, but this is what we could do. If there is anything else, there might not be, I don't know. But I think it'd be useful for the committee for you to explain how you can manage your venue. How do you think you can manage that venue without the requirement of the conditions that the police are asking?
Here, what I heard from guys is advice. I'm looking at, if we are allowed, we can train our team to wear the camera system, the body camera system, who's behind the counter. I don't know if they need to go on a special training because of CCTV system. Just to clarify, the kitchen at the background, which we are not talking about, we have a system which has an audio system as well, where the subway one does not have an audio system. But if we were required to have the audio system, we can ask our team to wear that. But I don't know if there is a training. I have to go and check. They can wear the camera system when they're serving the customer, so they can record at the same time. They can wear it for the late shift, not going throughout the day, but late shift. That's what I would suggest.
So to clarify, are you suggesting that you would consider body worn cameras for your staff?
Yes.
But so the conditions that Pieces Follows put forward in relation to the body worn video.
Yeah.
Are you saying that you would accept those conditions, or you'd be able to comply with those conditions?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't with the security? I think you need to be absolutely clear what it in the pack, if there are conditions there, or what it is that you are able to comply with, because the committee will be retiring to make the decision.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it'd be useful for you to be absolutely clear what it is that you would be able to comply with. You've got the report papers in front of you, haven't you? So are there conditions there that you think that you may be able to comply with that makes it viable for you as a business?
So CCTV we already have in place. The body worn camera was suggested if you wear guard, he or she wears that. Where I'm suggesting I can train my staff and buy the equipment for them to wear it, but not to have the guard.
Sorry, and I've said that. Is there, excuse me, Chair, I hope you don't mind me asking a question. I just suddenly thought, do you know, can only SIA wear body worn? Can anybody wear? Okay, sorry.
As long as they,
I said
yeah.
that then. Got a better check.
It just has to conform with GDPR in relation to the usage and storage of the data that's obtained. If the venue that already operates CCTV and they're registered with the Information Commissioner's Office, it's an extension of CCTV, so it just have to be managed, maintained and stored. Thank you.
So we can check over with our CCTV supplier. They have all the equipment system, so I can check and we can implement that. Definitely.
Right, thank you. Have you any further questions? Have you any further questions?
If we were to adopt your proposal for your staff, I think the wording for the conditions will need to be changed quite substantially, because the body worn video, I think, refers to security staff. Could we amend that within the course of this meeting? If we were so minded to agree to his suggestion.
Certainly, I mean, any new conditions that are proposed, we can include those in any decision that we make, whether you decide to refuse or grant. But I think the only thing I will say is that this is very ambiguous at the moment, because the conditions set out by Hampshire Constabulary are very clear. So if we could go through those and come to an agreement on what you're proposed to accept and what you don't want, that would be far clearer for us, rather than us just put down two conditions saying that you've got CCTV already and you're willing to put body worn cameras on staff who work behind the counter. So that's we need to be clear on that.
Thank you. Right. Yes. How do you wish to proceed? Because I think we're supposed to take on the conditions that we've got set out here.
I think it's if there are conditions that you are considering that are not in the report, then that's something that you need to consider and explain in public, because you need to allow the applicant and PC Swallow to respond to that, because that may affect the applicant in terms of a cost of viability, but it also may obviously affect the police's response in terms of their representation.
Right. I'm personally in favour of the police requirements. What do you think?
Chairman, if you wish, you could, sorry, councillor, I
Yeah.
was gonna say, if you wish, if you'd like to take a few minutes
Yeah, I think it's a good
to
idea.
consider,
Please.
and then if there are alternative conditions that you'd like to suggest in the public domain for both to respond to, then that would be acceptable if you wish to
Yeah.
do that.
Right, shall we have it going to exempt them for a few minutes? Please. Yes, please. Right, thank you for allowing us to have a short break. Has anybody got any further questions they want to ask before we go into our exempt? In that case, we'll go back into exempt.
Yeah.
So we'll let you know when we've finished.
Chairman, can I just clarify where we are? Before we left the room, I think there was a discussion about potentially looking at rewording some alternative
rewording
conditions. So I think if there is some conditions that the committee are looking to impose, that should be read out to the applicant and for the other parties to consider, and for them to be able to respond to that before you do then decide whether that is what you would like to do.
Basically, we're taking what we've got written here.
So you have no further conditions, you've
No.
read the conditions that are available, and there are no other suggested alternative for
No.
anybody else to consider?
No.
Fine. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear
No,
on
that's
that.
We're grateful for the help. You ready? Thank you. In reaching its decision, the subcommittee has carefully considered the application, the representations made by Hampshire Constabulary and other persons, and the applicant's evidence given today. It has taken into account the council's statement of licensing policy, public sector equality duty, the Home Office guidance issued under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, the duties under the Crime and Disorder Act 1998, and the rights set out in the Human Rights Act of 1998. The subcommittee has concluded that the application should be granted with all the proposed conditions by Hampshire Constabulary set out in the officer's report Appendix 2. And for the following reasons, the panel noted that the applicant recognised the concerns raised by the Hampshire Constabulary and other persons. On the balance of probability, the panel is satisfied that granting the application with the proposed conditions would not undermine the licensing objectives of the prevention of public nuisance, prevention of crime and disorder, protection of harm and public safety. Panel consider the written representation of the grounds of prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the prevention of the public nuisance. The panel are aware that it could not make assumptions as to any potential impact the requested variation application might have in relation to the licensing objectives, but must reach a decision based on the evidence before it. There was no evidence which could be presented to show that granting the application would undermine the licensing objectives. The panel noted that the Licensing Act 2003 provides the alternative mechanism for dealing with issues where the premises breaches the licensing objectives. The panel has also taken into account the relevant provisions of the Human Rights Act 1998, namely Article 6, the right to a fair hearing, Article 8, respect for private and family life, Article 1, first protocol, peaceful enjoyment of possessions. The panel considered that in all the circumstances, the proposed conditions are reasonable and proportionate, sufficiently promoting the licensing objectives of the prevention of public nuisance, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety and the protection of children from harm, and that the objectives would not be undermined by allowing the variation of the licence. The parties will be formally notified of the decision in writing shortly. This notification will include details of the right to appeal against this decision to the Magistrates' Court, which must be made within 21 days of the notification.